The preliminary report of the investigation into the Air India Dreamliner crash in Ahmedabad on June the 12th has been released, and one of the key findings confirms what had been suspected and reported, that both engines of the plane had shut down mid-air within just seconds of takeoff when the aircraft was about 40 to 50 feet in the air. Now, the report by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, or AAIB, into the crash of this Boeing Dreamliner 787, in which at least 270 people were killed both in the air and on the ground, said that the fuel cutoff switches, which control the flow of fuel to the engines, transitioned from the run position when they are active to the cutoff position one after another, within a second of each other. In fact, in the cockpit call recording as well, one pilot can be heard saying, "Why did you cut off?" To which the other pilot replies, "I did not." Now, we don't know which pilot said what, but that is what has been specified in this report. The report, released after 1 a.m. this morning, notes that the ram air turbine was deployed, indicating a total loss of power and thrust in the aircraft. Data from the Enhanced Airborne Flight Recorder, or EAFR, commonly known as the black box, revealed that both switches were moved back to the run position, which means the pilots attempted to relight the engines. One of the engines showed signs of recovery. The second engine simply did not, and the aircraft was airborne, as we saw, only for 32 seconds, and the report notes it traveled barely 1 nautical mile before crashing into the hostel block of the BJ Medical College at 1:39 p.m. Now, the fuel control switches have become the real area of focus, where one pilot asks the other, "Why did you switch them off?" The other replies, "I did not." Now, this is the position of the fuel switches in a Boeing 787. As you can see, they are just below the thrust control, the throttle control of the aircraft. That is where they are. They look like normal switches, but they most definitely are not. So let's show you in a little more detail what is contained in this particular rectangle right below the thrust lever. Let's move to the next slide. Of precisely how this actually works. Okay, we'll revert to that once we get more information on that. That's where the fuel control switches are on a 787, and they transitioned from the run position, where the fuel flows freely to the engine, to the cutoff position. Now, we don't know how that happened, whether it was a mechanical failure, was there a human factor, because one pilot asks the other, "Why did you cut off?" and the other pilot replies, "I did not." Now, there are 2 position switches. That is where the fuel control switches are located in this aircraft. Ignore the other parts of the cockpit. That's what the central part of it actually looks like. So there are 2 positions, the run and the cutoff position. This is run. Run is when the switches are flipped up, and cutoff is when they are flipped down. It looks like a simple a simple flip mechanism, like a light switch, but it actually isn't, and it's a little bit more complicated than that. Run means the fuel flows to the engine and it enables thrust. That's pretty basic to understand. But the cutoff disables electric generators driven by the engine when you press the cutoff, when you toggle it to the cutoff key. Let's keep this moving, guys, as quickly as possible. Normally moved on the ground during engine start or shut is very, very clear. These are not supposed to be touched and should not be going to the cutoff mode especially during takeoff, which is a critical part. Move during flight if manual restart is required. Only if manual restart is required. Bear that in mind. The switches have a guarded design with a lock mechanism. There are 2 brackets over here, and this entire assembly, where you've got the 2 fuel control switches, may look elementary. They may look like little switches like that, but they are not. They need to be lifted up and then pushed down, almost like a car gear in some respects, the reverse gear in some automatic vehicles. So it is not a straightforward flip of a switch. It cannot happen accidentally, and therefore raises the question, did it happen? How did it happen? What did it, or who did it? We don't know, but the pilots have obviously asked each other who did it or why the cutoff actually took place. The switches have that guarded design with a lock mechanism.